Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, and just know that this is being recorded, so you should be able to access it later. And I've also provided a PDF version of this presentation to Hamiltonian, including all of the links that you can click on. So I think there'll be a way for you to access that after the fact as well. Whoop, not advancing. There we go. Uh, right. And if you have, I'll pause periodically throughout the presentation for quick questions, clarifying questions. If you have any longer questions, please hold them till the end and we'll make sure to get to that. About me, much of this you already know. I moved to the DC area in 2003 and I had a BA in visual art and I got all of my side hustles on in DC. I waited tables, I volunteered at a number of institutions and organizations, and I taught lots and lots of non-credit classes. I completed my MFA in 2008, and then I was an adjunct professor of visual art at the Corcoran before it became part of GW, Prince George's Community College and Montgomery College. Do you guys know what adjunct means? It occurs to me that I use that term a lot. I'll go ahead and define it. An adjunct professor is a professor. You're working in a four-year institution, but it's a contract part-time position. So you're hired to teach per semester, per class. And then in 2015, I got hired as a full-time professor. So now I exclusively work at Montgomery College. I have lots of responsibilities on top of teaching, but I get healthcare and benefits and stuff like that, which you don't get as an adjunct professor. Here is our agenda. We're going to talk about how to start now. It sounds like a lot of you are already well on your way with this step, which is great. Then we'll talk about all of the different ways to teach art and what degrees you'll need. My path is through the studio arts. We'll talk more about that when we get to this one. There's like a moment where the graduate degrees diverge, and I went one path, and it sounds like some of you in the presentation went the other path. So feel free to fact check me in the chat in real time because I don't have any personal experience with that other branch of the path, though I do have some knowledge. We'll talk about how to pay for your degrees briefly, how to prepare for the job you want while working the job you have. And in job, I also consider students. So if you're still a student, I would put you in that category as well. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the hiring process. I will say that even though I knew that I wanted to go to arts education from a very young age, and I was actively seeking mentors and advice about all of this stuff, I got very little for a very long time. It was a very mystifying process to me. So these are all of the things that I learned through trial and error, had mentors explain to me, or just kind of bumbled into. Basically, it's all the information I wish someone had given me earlier in my career. All right. Okay. Step one, start now. There's no need to wait until you have your perfect degree to get started. You can volunteer at an arts organization, you can host a party, you can pick up a side gig, which sounds like a lot of you are already doing that. I'm going to move my, if you can't see where this arrow is pointing, maybe fiddle with your Zoom a little bit. Bring art supplies to your next babysitting gig or something. I've put here a number of institutions where you can volunteer. And this link down here, volunteer match, which will match you up. Whoopsie, it keeps clicking at me. When you're starting now, you want to plan for the portfolio. And what I mean by that is when you get to applying to these full-time, part-time, more rigorous teaching jobs, you're going to be asked to share work from your students, 10 to 20 images of student work. So as you're starting now, this is something that you can do this weekend. You can throw an art party. You want to start thinking about assignments that are going to give you good results for your eventual portfolio. And a good way to do that is by targeting one or more things from this list. Is it an assignment that addresses a technique or theory, elements of design that references historical or contemporary art and artists or art movements? And always you want to allow students to demonstrate their knowledge, skill, and individuality. That's a big one. You should be able to do this at any price point and at any age level. I am including this little image here because this was like an aha breakthrough moment for me. as a teacher just starting out. So this was an image made by a 5-year-old. I've given this assignment multiple times, and what I realized is I could craft an assignment that looked good, that showed individuality, and that addressed some things like color theory, positive and negative space. And other versions of this assignment, we've done organic and geometric shapes. So that was a moment, that was a big moment for me where I was like, I can be strategic about these assignments. It's not just about keeping kids busy on a Saturday afternoon. I can write assignments that I'm eventually going to want to put in my portfolio. And then the last thing is document everything. Everybody has a pretty good digital camera in their pocket most of the time. So just take pictures of everything. You want a lot of work at your fingertips when it comes time to prepare your portfolio. All right. Why is it clicking at me sometimes? Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next bit? All right, cool. Part 2, ways to teach art and what degrees you need. I'm having trouble with my Zoom window, guys. Sorry. There we go. Okay, entry-level jobs. These are jobs that many of you, it sounds like you already have. These are jobs that you can get with a high school, associate's, or bachelor's degree. An associate's degree is a 2-year degree that you get at a community college like Montgomery College, where I teach. So these are jobs like non-credit classes at an art supply store or makerspace, places like Michael's or Blick. If you're working there as a sales associate, occasionally they offer opportunities for people to lead workshops. So you could jump on one of those opportunities. You could work at a paint and sip. There's also lots of studio spaces that have classrooms where you could offer your own workshop. I have a studio at DC Art Studios in Tacoma Park, and we have a classroom space. So you could create your own classroom there. And summer camp counselor. I'm highlighting this one in blue because I know a ton of people who have started out as summer camp counselors, including myself. And now is a really good time to start looking for those jobs. I had a look around when I was preparing the presentation. There aren't too many listings, but I feel like if you went to some of the, I was like on idealist.org, some of these like databases of jobs, but I feel like if you were still interested in a camp teaching position or a counselor or assistant position, if you reached out to the individual camps, they might have something turn up. I'm again highlighting this because you don't really need any teaching experience to get these jobs. So it's a really great first step and it's fun. A lot of them pay pretty well. So I highly encourage you, especially if you're like a high school student or a current college student and you don't have any summer plans, to look out for these camp counselor jobs. Okay, college degrees. Ah, Zoom issues. There we go. That's better. Okay, I finally figured it out. All right, so your college degrees are going to be your Bachelor's of Arts, a BA, which is what I have. It's sort of a less rigorous studio arts degree, or a BFA, which is a more rigorous studio version of the degree, Bachelor's of Fine Arts, or any bachelor's degree really with evidence of substantial art or studio experience on your own. The types of jobs you can get with these degrees are all sorts of non-credit classes, including but not limited to senior centers, which are fabulous. They usually pay pretty well. They usually have a pretty good budget. Some of the students are fascinating artists. You know, they're older artists that are retired or maybe had a thriving practice on their, but before they relocated to the senior center. So these are really gold mines. After school programs, community centers. MNCPPC stands for Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission, and they have a number of community centers all over the area. Most of them have art programs. So I encourage you to look at that. Then you have your art centers like Viz Arts, Museum of Contemporary Art in Arlington, Pyramid Atlantic, Sitar Center, Capitol Hill Arts Center. So those will be, again, very community friendly. They'll have classes for kids and adults. Then you have your studio ateliers, which are maybe a slightly more traditional or slightly more rigorous venue for teaching, like the Washington Studio School, Torpedo Factory. There's lots of them. These are just to get you going. And then my favorite one, non-credit classes at 2- and 4-year credit institutions. So these are adult non-credit classes or high school portfolio development, and they are at 4- and 2-year institutions. I have highlighted a whole bunch of them over here. Most community colleges and some 4-year schools offer these. And these are some that I have worked at personally or looked up and can confirm. So there's one at Prince George's Community College, one Corcoran GW, Howard County Community College, no, Howard Community College. Montgomery College has one, and then also UDC. So note that down, put a little pin in it. We're going to circle back to this. We're going to circle back. Yes, thank you. Nikki put a really good note in the chat. We're going to circle back to this tip in a minute. So for now, just put a little pin in that. If you are looking for degrees with that you can get basically right out of college, take a look at those. And remember this tip. We'll come back to it. All right. This is the point where the paths diverge. You've got your master's degree. Degrees, there's 2 options. There's the MAT, which is a master's at teaching. This is a degree focused in teaching. So your education is going to be in teaching. It's required for all public K-12 institutions. And again, this is not the path that I took. So please chime in the chat if you have firsthand knowledge of this degree. It's usually a 1- to 2-year program. And in addition to that, you will probably have to get a teaching certificate or pass an exam. In our area, it's called the Praxis exam. And I believe that they'll prepare you for that in this program. So that, again, is required for public K-12 teaching. If you want to teach elementary school kids or high school kids in the public school system, this is the degree for you. On the other side, you have the MFA, which is also a master's degree. It's Master's of Fine Art. It is a studio-specific degree. So in this one, you're probably not going to take any classes on teaching, but you're going to take a heck of a lot of classes about art. And this is the degree that's required for teaching college-level studio art courses. So again, this is the degree that I have. And it's usually a 2- to 3-year program, depending on where you go and how you split it up. The curveball are private K-12 schools who can set their own parameters for the teachers that they hire. So I've known people teach in a private K-12 school with a Bachelor's of Arts, a Bachelor's of Fine Arts, and both an MFA and an MAT. Great. Questions about the degrees? I know that was a lot of really technical knowledge. Okay, moving on. How to pay for your degrees. So I strongly encourage when it comes to this moment that you make an appointment with your college financial aid officer. So I am not an expert here, but I can give you some generalized advice that I have given to countless students, and it seems to work for them. But again, all of these colleges and universities and grad schools have financial aid people whose job it is to help you with the nuances of paying for your degree. So here are the broad strokes. Shameless plug for community college. So advice number 1, do as much as you can at a community college. Those are those 2-year schools that offer associate's degrees. So you can complete your associate's degree there, or if you're working towards your bachelor's, your BA or your BFA, your 4-year degree. It is a cost-effective way for you to complete the first 2 years of your undergraduate education, or a lot of people double back to community college to take some of their gen ed requirements or some of the broader classes because it saves you a ton of money. We also have these things called articulation agreements, which there's a lot of nuance there, but just know if you are interested in going to a community college, ask about their articulation agreements. Those are relationships or formal agreements that they have with four-year institutions that mean two things. Number one, it's an easier path to transfer, but number two, it means that such and such four-year institution really likes such and such community college, has a good relationship with them, respects the program, really likes the students. So even if you don't wind up making use of an articulation agreement, it's a good idea to know if you have any, because it kind of lets you know how well your community college credits are going to transfer out. And then obviously you have the knowledge and support in navigating arts and higher ed from the faculty, at the community college. I've heard from a lot of students that they get a lot of support from their community college faculty, and in fact kind of double back even when they move on to their four-year degrees to kind of check in with us, which is great. If you've already completed your bachelor's degree and you're working on your master's degree, community college is still a great option for you. So we have a lot of graduates who come back to our community college classes to build their application portfolios, their personal portfolios. So you can get great guidance for that. And I also encourage you to take a professional practice class. I really think every artist should be required to take a professional practice class. That was not an option at my school, and now I'm a professional practice evangelist. So let's talk a little more about pro practice before we move on. Come on. Okay, so a pro practice class is a class that's going to help you prepare all of your professional materials that you might need for your future applications. Yes, somebody is just singing the praises of a pro practice class in the chat. So it's going to help you practice writing about art and ideas. You'll definitely write an artist statement and possibly other things as well. You'll create a professional CV. You'll learn the correct way to document your work and present it professionally. You'll build a website, and you'll also get lots and lots of practice and confidence in speaking publicly about art, and specifically your art. Our pro practice class at MC and many others culminate in a portfolio night event and that's what you see in this photo here. That's where we invite industry professionals and admissions counselors from transfer institutions to come meet with our students, review their materials, and give them one-on-one feedback about their materials before you're actually applying for something. So as I say here on the slide, this is a great way to take your application materials for a test drive. Let's say that let's say you finish your undergrad degree and you're not necessarily looking to transfer. Don't be afraid to tailor your pro practice experiences to your specific needs and career paths. So you could go in and tell your faculty member, hey, I've already got my bachelor's degree. I'm really looking for that next step in a teaching degree. Can we kind of shoehorn those goals? Can I write those materials instead of the transfer materials? And most of the time your faculty will be willing to work with you. So it's a really fabulous opportunity. I think everybody should take advantage of it. Again, you're going to get feedback on your portfolio before you actually need to apply for anything. This is invaluable information. And there are national portfolio day events, which are just the peer review, just the faculty review that you can sign up for if you don't want to enroll in a whole class. Just Google National Portfolio Day, and you can take a run around a couple of those events. All right, questions about that? Anything so far? Okay, let's talk about other ways to pay for your degrees. One option would be an accelerated schedule. If you're spending less time completing this degree, you're probably paying less money. So you could look for a one-year intensive MAT program. Those might be 12 to 16 months. So they're quick. You're only studying for that for 1 year. Some schools, including MICA, which is in Baltimore, the Maryland Institute College of Art, offer a combined 5-year BFA MAT combo, which is, I think, a whole year shorter than if you did those two degrees side by side. So that's an option for those of you who are still in your undergrad and are interested in teaching K through 12. You could look for this combined degree. Another way to save some money is to go for alternative formats. There is something called a low residency MFA. So that is it's a rigorous MFA program, but you're doing most of the work at home, and then you're traveling to your school for individual in-person critiques once or twice a semester. So it's not quite an online degree. It's low residency. It's like a hybrid degree. And you're going to save money because the school is not providing you with studio space. You're working at home or in your regular studio. And they offer those at MICA, again, SVA, the School of Visual Arts in New York, and SAIC. You could easily get to MICA or SVA from our area in like a day if you needed to. SAIC and Chicago would be a little bit harder. There are also online MATs at really reputable universities like American University and University of Maryland Global Campus. So those are really good options. And finally, you can find funds elsewhere. I was shocked the other day when I just Googled fully funded MFA options, and a whole list of places come up that have MFA programs, but they, between scholarships, work study, grants, fellowships, you don't really pay for anything apart from your housing, or sometimes maybe not even that. So have a look at that for fully funded options. You could also cobble together some assistance through finaid.org. FinAid, you can think like financial aid. You'll log on, you'll create a profile, and they will just shoot your way a whole bunch of fellowships and scholarships that you apply for. Most of them are not huge, but if you're willing to do a little bit of writing, you can cobble together several $1,000s a semester that way, and that could cover your supplies or possibly your rent. And then the last thing I want to say about finding funds, the sticker price, that's like how much your school states is the tuition, targets the wealthiest students. So there are going to be people who can just pay their tuition, no questions asked. But if that's not you, don't be afraid to negotiate your financial aid scholarship or package with them. That is an option that they don't advertise for obvious reasons, but don't be afraid to negotiate your financial aid scholarship. I've had people, transfer students at MC, get a couple $1,000s knocked off of their tuition just by asking. And you can also have lengthier conversations with them where they might tell you about some scholarships that you didn't know that you could apply for art students. I meant to tell you this earlier. My husband said you should give people real numbers. So here's some real numbers. And these are based on this year's tuition. So if you're thinking about your community college option, for a full year at Montgomery College this year, for in-county, you're going to pay $3,600 for your whole year, full-time student. University of Maryland, you're going to pay $12,000, but $32,000 if you need housing. So you're already saving a ton of money in a community college that way. And at MICA, a private institution, you're going to spend $56,000 on tuition and an additional $13,000 on housing. So you can see how the savings really add up if you get as much out of the way at a community college as you can. The last thing I want to say about negotiating financial aid is it is always worth your while to apply to more schools than you're actually interested in going to. Most of you have heard about like safety schools. Throw a couple of those in there. They might give you a huge scholarship, and then you can use that as leverage to get a better scholarship at the school that you really want to go to. So that feels scary. You can feel like, who am I to ask for more money? Or maybe you're just so excited that you got into your dream school to begin with. So like, throw a little party, don't accept it yet, and call them and say, hi, dream school, you're my dream school. I'd really love to study there. I think it's a great fit. However, I can't really make the finances work, and such other school offered me a full ride. Is there anything you can do to help me attend your school next semester? Because it's my top choice. And they will work with you. I've seen it happen time and time again. So don't be afraid to negotiate. You are worth it, and your education is worth it. All right. Questions before we move on to the next bit? All right. Awesome. Preparing for the job you want while working the job you have. And remember, this also applies to if you're a student. So at every step in your journey, you should be asking yourself, what can I do right now to make my application stand out later? remember, there's a human being at the other end of every application. So you want to think, what can I do to make myself stand out to that human being, be more impressive to that human being, or solve a problem for that human being. So these are things that you can start doing now that's going to help your application stand out later. Yes, thank you. There's a really good anecdote in the chat. All right, so thing number one you can do to help out future human being who wants to hire you is you can diversify your skills. Become an expert in something. So whatever for your institution or high school that you're working at in the future dream job is going to have a lot of facilities, a lot of technical equipment, and a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes that they are going to need people to deal with. So one thing that you can do that's going to set yourself apart is figure out how to manage some of that equipment. You might be taking a printmaking class right now and you're learning everything you need to know about prints. Could you also ask your faculty member to teach you how to mix the acid bath or prepare the whatever ground you need for printmaking, or learn how to load and unload a kiln or mix glazes? These are things that might not be specifically covered in your classes, but you could undertake the responsibility to learn how to do that so that later when you're applying for jobs, you could say, hey, I can load a kiln, I can manage the ceramics classroom as well. That's going to be a huge leg up. In fact, we have a couple of graduates who have taken this advice so to heart. I have a former student who's a fabulous painter. He's completing his master's degree at RISD, but he's studying printmaking. And he's a work study student in printmaking. He's learning everything there is to know about printing presses and ink so that he can kind of pull double duty when he's going to apply for jobs. It's really smart. It's a good strategy. Is there administrative niche you can fill? Are you really good at making spreadsheets and budgets? Definitely put that out there when you're applying for things. And or is there a subset of your classes that you can teach in addition to your specialty? Every faculty member that I know have ever known is teaching more than one subject. There's the thing that you're passionate about, the thing that you're pursuing for your individual work. But then are you also teaching drawing, for example? Our sculpture faculty member for the longest time was also teaching woodcut. I'm painting and drawing 2D person, but I also have a lot of experience with really technical anatomy. So I can teach the figure drawing classes as well. So really think about, is there a subset of classes that you can teach in addition to your passion or your specialty? Another thing you can do is get involved. Again, there's so much administrative stuff going on behind the scenes that you're not even really aware of until somebody asks you to help out. So go ahead and get involved in those now. Volunteer for a committee. Ask to assist someone with curriculum development, or all of those kind of boring sounding tasks that kind of make your eyes roll back in your head, like I don't know, outcomes assessment. There's so many of them. So just ask your faculty member, you know, is there an administrative task I could help out with? Because then it goes on your resume and they're going to say, ding, ding, ding. Oh, this person has experience with such and such onerous task that we all hate doing. I shouldn't be down on it. They're not bad tasks, but they are time consuming, and it's not what you expect yourself to be doing when you go into teaching. You could sponsor a student club and, or as I mentioned before, brush up on your office skills. There's always somebody who needs to be the bookkeeper, the record keeper, or the budget person. Questions about diversifying your skills? Okay, we also want to impress future person who's looking at our job application. So prepare to stand out. You can take advantage of existing opportunities like internships. Have a look on your college website for an internship you could participate in, or some of the what do you call them, job banks that I link later have internship opportunities. You could complete an artist residency, which is a fabulous opportunity to both grow your personal practice and your portfolio and to network, which is really good. And I have highlighted two in particular that I know have really good financial aid support. One is the Chautauqua Institution, which is in upstate New York. They have summer residencies. They have a 2-week residency and a 6-week residency. And there's rotating visiting faculty. You're going to meet so many artists and faculty members from Chicago, New York, all over the country, and some international. It's a really great program. And then nobody talks about this. If you're even the smallest bit outdoorsy, the national parks, almost every single national park has an artist residency. They vary widely from park to park. Some of them are only a week long, some of them are a month, some of them are a year. And they provide housing. It's not like luxury, but it's nicer than anywhere else you're going to be allowed to stay in the national park. You get your own little cabin in Denali or whatever. It's amazing. So I have linked the photo here are a couple of artists that have recently completed the national park residency, and they're not all visual artists either. That's why I chose this picture. So some of them are visual artists, some of them are musicians, some of them do relational work that involves performance and writing. So definitely check out the national parks. I think you have to pay your own transportation there. They might give you a stipend for food. Again, it depends on the park. It's different from park to park, but this is a fabulous opportunity that nobody talks about. Now, we know that the National Endowment and the parks are kind of in limbo right now, but I did check this yesterday, and as of yesterday, they are still accepting applications for national parks artists in residence. You can take a seminar or class. You heard in my introduction that I have taken classes at the Art Institute of Chicago and the Slade School of Fine Art in London. Both of those things are true, but they were not credit classes. They were workshops. Well, one of them was a credit class, but it's impressive, but it's also like a thing that anybody can plan ahead for and sign up for. So that was a really cool thing that I did that I didn't realize was going to be like a flex, but it turned out to be. And many of them have, again, financial aid packages, especially if you go to a school like SAIC, they might help you with a scholarship. And or work as a studio assistant. You can look for artists in your area and become their assistant. Finally, you can make your own opportunities. I know a lot of people who have done this, a DIY residency or project. This thing here, for any of the parents out here, the artist residency in motherhood is an organized residency, but it's self-driven. So like there's a website, you sign up for it, you get materials. There's like certain other benchmarks that are included that kind of fold you into this group of people completing this residency, but you do it on your own time in your own home. So it's like a nice kind of hybrid between the existing opportunities and the make your own. And as per usual, document, document, document. Speak to everybody, photograph everything. Questions? All right. Get hired. Get hired. All right. This is a sample job application. There's a whole spectrum of jobs that we've talked about. So obviously the more education you need for the job and the more sort of full-time the job is, the more of these items you're going to need. So you're not going to need all of these to become a camp counselor, for example, but you will probably need all of them to be a K through 12 art teacher or a college art teacher. All right, so you're going to need your images, 20 images of your personal work, because in addition to everything we've discussed, you are, as an artist, expected to be pursuing your own art and exhibitions and your own practice. So 20 images of your personal work, that would be a similar portfolio that you would send out to a gallery or a solo exhibition that you were applying for, and 20 images of your student work. We already talked a little bit about that. Lots and lots of writing, a cover letter or statement of intent, your professional CV with all your exhibitions, teaching, and related experience. There's a difference between a CV and a resume. So you might have heard that your resume needs to be under a page or under. A CV is everything. So it can be multiple pages long. You want to put everything on there that's in any way related to the job that you're applying for. So don't be afraid to go over a page here. They might ask for a sample syllabi and assignments. They might ask for something called your philosophy of teaching, which we're going to talk about in a second. They might ask for your artist statement. And remember, if you took a pro practice class, over half of this you will complete with faculty support in a pro practice class. And then there are the other things, a couple letters of recommendation or contact info for recommendations. You're probably going to need that for any of these jobs. So start thinking about who you want to ask to be your reference. Your transcripts, they're going to look at your grades. And remember, your K through 12 education might also require your praxis exam scores and or your teaching certificate. Your interviews, some of these jobs may involve more than one interview. Since teaching is so people focused, I think you can expect to have an interview for any of these jobs, and then possibly a teaching demo, which is like a short little class where you pretend that the hiring committee is your class and you teach them a class in a stated amount of time, maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So this is a sample application, and then we're going to go through and kind of break down the pieces one by one. Go on. All right, sample images. We already talked a little bit about your personal portfolio, but as you are selecting work for your personal portfolio, ask yourself, which serves this application better, depth or breadth? So what that means is depth is like a deep dive into a single subject matter, media, practice, project, etc. Breadth is shows your experience across a lot of different media or ideas. So think about what job you're going for and which of these is going to be a better fit. If you are applying to teach sculpture at a college level, you probably want to go depth. Like you want to show them how much you know about 3D and sculpture. If you're applying to teach art at a middle school, you probably want to go breadth because you want to show that you can teach students how to paint and draw and work with clay and do weaving and photography or whatever else it is. So when you're compiling your portfolio, consider depth or breadth. The student portfolio, we've already talked a little bit about. You want excellent student examples at a variety of skill levels. So you don't want to just put in the images by the students who are already, little Da Vinci's and Raphaels. Put those in for sure because they make you look good. But you also want to include the average student who did an excellent job. You want to show that you can help people of average skill level get better. So don't feel like you only have to put in your Renaissance masters. It's okay if the student work is not the exact age, media, or skill level that you are applying to teach, especially if you're kind of at the moment where you're leveling up. So let's say you've been teaching non-credit classes and then you finally got your master's degree and you're applying for your first suite of credit jobs. It's okay if you show work by kids. It's more about how you structure the assignments, how you organize the classroom, and you can always contextualize it in your cover letter. Once you've gained more experience teaching a particular class or age level, then you can lean a little more heavily into the exact age, media, or skill level that you're working with. But at the beginning, it's okay to just show what you have and be honest about it. Questions about images? Okay. What to say in your cover letter. So your cover letter is informative, but it's also a writing sample. So sneakily, whoever is reviewing your portfolio is going to be looking at how you write and think about art, and also presumably how you're going to teach your students to think and write about art. The cover letter gets read first, but you should write it last. So you should organize your portfolio, think about all of the other components, and then use your cover letter to pull the whole thing together. You want your application package to be like a living, breathing, cohesive organism where all of the parts are interconnected and related. So you can use the cover letter to contextualize, highlight, or connect other parts of your applications. If there's an item on your resume that is just one line, but was really impactful and informative to the way that you teach your classes, for sure, address that in your cover letter, especially if it also shows up in your personal work, right? So see if you can tie as many things together as you can without being too over wordy. This tip here was the thing that changed my life. I had been teaching college level art classes for 6 or 7 years before I started applying. That's not true. I immediately started applying for full-time jobs, but I didn't get any. And it wasn't until somebody that I didn't even know sat me down and explained this to me that allowed me to start getting interviews and callbacks and ultimately a job. So maybe you guys are smarter than me, but when I was like, I want to be an art teacher, I was focusing entirely on my students, obviously, because to me, that's what you do when you're a teacher. However, as I've been alluding to throughout this talk, you are doing so much more than just teaching your students. So you want to think about how to discuss service 3 ways. One of them, yes, is teaching service to your students. The other is research, service to your own artistic practice, and remember, relate it always to how this is going to impact your students. And finally, service to your department or your school. This is where it's going to look really, really good if, as a part-timer, you have been volunteering for committees, helping with administrative work behind the scenes. So this is where that comes into play. Service to your school. What can you contribute to your to your department or your school? Do you have an incredible personal network that you can sort of bring to the school that your students can access? What can you contribute? What service can you be to your department or your school? And always, always, always answer the question, how. Don't just say the thing, explain how you are going to do it or how you're already doing it. So we can, if you have questions about exactly how to do that, we can address that in the Q&A. So questions about the cover letter. All right. What to say in your teaching philosophy or philosophy of teaching? You want to discuss your philosophy on teaching art, obviously, but you also want to discuss your thoughts on educating the whole person. This was another situation where I was really naive. And I mean, I think I knew on one level that most students who take art classes don't go on to be professional artists. But when you're an art teacher, you're teaching people how to draw or how to paint or whatever it is, but you're also sort of using art as a lens to help them be better, happier humans. So again, always answer the question, how? How do you engage your students and help them generate ideas? How do you help them evaluate their work? How do you help them deal with things like perfectionism and setbacks? I get student reviews every semester in my classes, and this is one of the things that comes up more often than not. Students in my drawing classes will say, you know, my drawing really helped me be more accepting of my mistakes and other aspects of my life, or it really helped me understand that it's a process that I can work through, and they're getting that in a drawing class. So think about that in your philosophy of teaching. Art as a lens to educating the whole human. And as always, tie it back to your portfolio, your personal practice, and your cover letter, if possible. Questions about teaching philosophy? I'm gonna check my time. Good. The interview. Everything we've been doing up until now has been leading up to getting an interview, because that's where the real magic happens. And that was, again, the thing that 2 slides ago when I said this information changed my life. When somebody explained service 3 ways to me, I immediately got an interview on my very next job application, and then I got hired on the one after that. So yeah, everything we've been preparing for up until this is leading to the interview. I'm not going to say too much about interview specifics because each job will set its own specifics. So when they reach out to you to schedule an interview, they will tell you what you need to bring or prepare. But in general, it's going to be like the in-person version of your application. So if they're asking for personal and student work, they're probably going to want you to talk about your personal and your student work. I will tell you a little bit about the format. So entry-level, non-credit, and adjunct jobs, adjunct, remember, are part-time college teachers. Those are likely to be one-on-one interviews with you and the department chair or the program manager or the facilitator of the organization. So that's usually a one-on-one interview, and you'll go, it's less formal. You'll sit in their office and you'll explain, you'll click through some images on their computer likely. The full-time jobs, K through 12 and college level full-time jobs, are likely to have a hiring committee where you are presenting to a group of people anywhere from 3 to 6 to 8, who knows how many, it'll vary depending on the job, but it's much more formal. It'll also probably take longer, and there might be more than one interview. So for those, there'd be multiple levels. You might get a phone call or a Zoom interview first, and then they'll whittle it down, and then you'll get an in-person interview. So again, each search will have its own set of requirements. Present your materials. In a lot of cases, the hard work is already done. In preparing the application, you've already thought, like, who am I? What kind of a teacher am I? What do I want my students to learn from me? So you've done a lot of the heavy lifting already, and it's just a question of showing up, being relaxed, being comfortable, being honest, and talking to them. Your interpersonal people skills, right? A couple of interview tips: you want to be organized and prepared. And a lot of people ask, how should you dress? You may have heard you should dress for the job you want. I don't know if that's necessarily the case for art teachers, because art teachers tend to wear clothes that they don't mind ruining, and you should probably look a little nicer than that in your job interview. So you want to dress professionally but comfortably. Like, you want to feel like yourself, but the most professional version of yourself. If you're not a person who feels comfortable in a suit, don't wear a suit, because you're going to be like picking at it and look like you're, wearing somebody else's clothes for a while. So dress professionally but comfortably. You want to feel like yourself. All right. Where to search for jobs. So remember, you're going to get this as a PDF if you want it. All of these are links that you can click on. For volunteer and non-credit jobs, that includes the camp counselor stuff that I was mentioning at the top. Indeed.com and idealist.org are really great resources. There used to be, not even that long ago, maybe 5-8 years ago, local websites that someone would maintain, an arts organization would maintain with all the local jobs, and those have slowly one by one kind of dropped off. And I think it's because everything is on these two behemoths. So I was clicking around the other day. There's tons of jobs at all levels of education right now in our area. So definitely click on those if you're looking for jobs. Craigslist, I've applied to many a job on Craigslist. Just use your good internet hygiene. Don't do your research. Make sure that you're meeting someone from a real organization in a public place. So Craigslist is good, but be careful. And individual websites and social media. There's a lot of jobs on social media coming up all the time. So that's a good one for these sort of volunteer and non-credit jobs. Public K through 12 and private K through 12. This is where I would love to hear from someone in the chat. If you're looking for a public K through 12 job, your best bet is going to be to go to the local public school system website. So in our area, that's DCPS, DC Public Schools. And there are jobs there right now. You can also find private schools hiring, again, on Indeed.com. You can just Google K through 12 art jobs. Again, I did it yesterday and tons of things popped up. And again, individual schools and websites. If you know, for example, that there's people who are kind of willing to apply for jobs nationally and move anywhere. And then there's people that really need to stay in a zone, in a geographic location. And if you are one of those latter people, what I would do is just compile a list of schools where you might like to work and just check their HR page regularly, monthly, right? And see what pops up. There's a lot of things that open and close quickly and maybe don't wind up on these websites, or they get filled before they even make it to the website. So just get in the habit of checking these things monthly. And then lastly, your college level jobs. This is mostly for full-time jobs, but some of them will also post adjunct or part-time positions. College Art Association, the CAA, is a really great resource, and they have an annual conference, which if you're really serious about applying for college level jobs, I strongly encourage you to go to the CAA conference. Often they will conduct initial interviews at the conference. So you would apply ahead of time and then maybe schedule an interview at the conference. It's also a conference. So they're going to have a lot of professional development, mentoring sessions, peer reviews. So if you're not quite ready to apply, you could get your application in pretty good shape and take it to the CAA and take advantage of some of the offerings there. I think it's often you know, it's often near us, like either in New York or Baltimore or Philadelphia. I think they alternate locations, and maybe every other year, I feel like it's kind of in our area, so it's easy to get to. There's higher ed jobs, which is another sort of database like CAA. I personally don't know as much about that one, but they have a lot of good job postings on there right now. There's academic keys, which is comparable to higher ed, but the thing I like about academic keys is they send out a monthly email with national and international teaching jobs. So I found out about a lot of really cool jobs on academic keys. And I strongly encourage you to sign up for their email. And again, individual school websites. So same thing we said over here, make a short list of schools in your area where you would like to work, and just check their HR pages, because that'll be the very first place these jobs appear. And I think sometimes they get filled before they even make it to the higher, what do you call them? The hiring website. All right, questions about searching for jobs? Okay, final thoughts. This is one of my favorite tips. Look for a side door, especially if you're looking for a part-time adjunct position, or any other part-time jobs. I feel like the full-time jobs are a little bit more formal and organized, but you can look for a side door for some of these part-time jobs. So here's how you would do that. Prepare a simplified PDF version of your application materials and email them out to local schools 2 weeks before classes start. There's always a kerfuffle. There's always some sort of disaster at the last minute, where somebody was scheduled to teach a class, but they have a conflict, they can't teach it anymore. There's almost always a class that they're scrambling to fill at the last minute. And if you have completed the correct degrees and this magical email lands in somebody's inbox at the exact moment that they're desperate to find someone, you can get a job that way. Bonus points if HR already has you in their system. So remember, way back at the beginning of the talk, I said, consider applying for non-credit teaching jobs at these community colleges, right? Or four-year institutions. Guess what? You now have the appropriate degree. You've sent them a random email 2 weeks before classes start. They are desperate for someone to teach Introduction to Drawing, and they don't even have to fill out the paperwork. You're an easy hire because you already work for them. So that's why it's a really, really good idea to invest the legwork to get an entry-level job, a non-credit job at one of these four-year institutions, because in a lot of ways, often it's the very same people who are hiring the non-credit and the credit positions, or doing the paperwork, or they're in the same building and they talk to one another. So that's a really good hack. That's how I got my first teaching job. Exactly this. I sent an email out 2 weeks before classes start, and they were desperate for somebody, and I was already in the system. Boom, I was an easy hire. Never underestimate making the paperwork easier for somebody else. My last thought is keep your materials current. Update your artist resume as you make new work. Keep a running file of your best student images and maybe edit them occasionally. You want to try to be always ready, but know that you're never actually ready. Like, it's never the perfect timing. So it's a balance between having things kind of ready to go so that you can drop an application at a moment's notice if a really good job comes up, but also knowing that there's always going to be something in the back of your head saying, oh, if I'm just going to wait another 2 months for these students to turn in their final projects, or this will be so much better next year when I've done X, Y, and Z, I've completed this residency or whatever. The timing is never perfect. Go for it anyway. So that's the note that I will end on. And if you guys have any questions, we'll take questions. I'm going to try to stop sharing so I can see your